Howdy, folks. Welcome to the podCAST Iron. My name is Laura Mullen Vermilia, and on this podcast, I interview members of the cast iron art community in order to inspire, educate, and spread ideas about iron casting and cast iron art. I have just a quick announcement that I'm going to be changing the podcast to a bi-weekly release schedule. So instead of dropping a new episode every week, I'll be posting them every other week. And I'll talk more about that at the end of the episode. But without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest on today's episode, and that is Robert Dale Nolan. Rob is a metal caster and fabricator from Kentucky who put in 3 summers as an intern at Sculpture Trails, back when things were just getting off the ground. I think you'll find his insight into that world, as well as the iron casting side of academia at the University of Kentucky, quite interesting because he has a lot of great stories from that time. Rob, thanks for living up to the challenge of being in the spotlight on the show and for letting me grill you about your past as well as your introduction to iron casting. I'm sure anyone who knows you will agree with me when I say that you are a steadfast and knowledgeable member of our community who has earned every ounce of experience from all of the work that you've put in helping others around you. The podCAST Iron Show is sponsored in part by supporters on Patreon. So thank you to everyone who's joined as a member on Patreon to help me afford the production costs of this show. And I'm so honored to say that this episode is brought to you by our top sponsor, Sloss Metal Arts, which is a national center for iron casting and metal art. For more information about the Sloss Metal Arts program, visit their website, which is slossmetalarts.com. And yes, you probably won't be surprised to find out that Rob and I do talk about the national conference at Sloss in this episode too. The stories are unending, and I will never get tired of hearing them. Now, for all of you listening or watching, thanks so much for tuning in, and please enjoy. Robert Nolan, welcome to the podCAST Iron. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Like I said earlier, a little nervous, but excited.
Oh, don't be nervous. I don't know how to respond to that. Jeez. Don't be nervous. We'll just keep talking and then you'll forget we're recording or whatever. So let's start off, as is tradition. Well, who the hell are you anyways?
I'm Robert Dale Nolan III. I go by Rob Nolan for most people in the iron casting community who know me. I live in Lexington, Kentucky currently. That might not be the case soon. We're looking at moving. And I am currently a fabricator / shop assistant for Matthew and Crean Maynard at their shop, Maynard Studios in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So it's exciting. It's always never a dull day. It's always something new, but it's not focused in iron casting. So
I didn't know that. So what? Well, I mean, I want to get to your formative years. Do you think we'll talk about your fabrication?
I'll have to go through it. Yeah, because
okay.
art school and iron casting kind of has led to where I'm at now. So
well, let's just jump right into formative years. Do you have any memories from childhood or growing up that you think maybe kind of came full circle from when you were a kid to now, or how you developed as an artist or sculptor?
Yeah. So I don't know if it fully came full circle. I always kind of find it funny. When I was really little, I loved to draw. Like I would literally just sit in my room and draw. Which my dad yells at me, I need to get out of the house. I have totes of how to draw books from anything from animals, anime, comic books, anatomy, cars. Like I probably have I could start a small library with books on just how to draw stuff. The odd thing is I never actually followed the instructions. I would look at the end result picture and try to copy that.
Oh,
I'm really weird with the way I drew stuff. I was an odd little kid. Now I can't draw a stick bigger to save my life sometimes. So it's weird how that works.
I'm with you on that, but I never could draw anyways. But yeah, I mean, I can get an idea across with some chicken scratch, but yeah.
But parents were always supportive of that. Never had an issue. I had art class in grade school and middle school, like most people. However, I actually didn't have art class in high school at all. The 2 blocks that were available for art classes, I took JROTC, it was a Navy focused one, and drafting. So like house plans, mechanical drafting, electrical drafting, plumbing, stuff like that. And there was just no room for art, which didn't bother me as much because I still did that stuff on my own time. It was just our art class in my high school. I went to a county high school. I'm from Boyd County, Kentucky. Very like we had to drive your tractor to school day and muddiest truck day type stuff. Um, but our art class was mainly full of like the football players and cheerleaders who I was really good friends with, but none of them really like had a passion for it or really cared for it. It was kind of like a just kick back and relax type thing. So I never felt like not encouraged, but like never had a draw to go try to join that. I preferred ROTC. So I did like the military type stuff. Didn't go that direction, obviously, but I also like drafting a lot because I was able to do technical drafting. I kind of started to nerd out and stuff, which is kind of a reoccurring theme. I find a process I really like and I nerd out on it pretty hard for a while. So, but did that in high school originally because of the drafting that I took in high school. I did 4 years of it. I have an associate's in drafting from the community college back home.
Oh, wow. Is the drafting like, was it when you were still, I'm going to sound dumb when I ask this question, but it's not digital drafting. This was like back in the days when you were drawing everything in perspective with rulers.
Yeah. So we had both. We had digital and traditional. At least that's how we refer to it as. Our drafting classroom, half of it was computers and the other half of it was the big old school drafting tables. Okay. I don't know if everybody knows what those looks like, but it's the big tables that actually like
they lean.
They lean up, they tilt up, and they have the big mechanical arms that you can slide across with rulers and stuff on to help keep your line straight for making like floor plans and stuff. And yeah, so like now if I use AutoCAD or Fusion 360 or anything like that, you draw stuff, in a 3 dimensions, it can print out the stuff. But back then I learned how to draw stuff with a front, top, right view, and then you'd have to draw the isometric view, the 3D image. So I did all that by hand. We had to do that the first 2 years. And then the second 2 years, you still incorporated that, but you started to learn like SolidWorks and stuff. Like my senior project, me and all the other guys who I was really close with, we each designed a part of an engine and then put it together to make like an actual animated working engine. So that was really cool.
An engine for what?
Just a 4-cylinder car engine.
Cool.
So nothing super fancy or complicated.
I mean, it's pretty complicated to me, but well, I was like, it could be an engine for anything.
Yeah, but that was my introduction to 3D modeling, which comes back up later through in college as well, which ended up helping. So, but we did that most of high school, and that led into
the community college.
Yeah, so it counted. So like all my because we had my high school was a normal high school, but we also had a vocational school. A lot of schools I know nowadays don't really have those anymore. So like we had drafting, medical terminology, which is where people would start to dip their toes in the nursing. And then we had automotive and welding. I was never really big on automotive. My cousins and stuff were mechanics, never had an interest in it. I just wanted to know how to fix my car if something broke. Other than that, I can call them. And then we did have a welding class, but it was taught by an older gentleman. It was kind of crazy. Not gonna lie, a little scared of. Yeah. So I kind of just shied away from that because I really clicked with our drafting teacher, Mr. DeBoer, a lot more. So did that, but that also is where I decided to apply to the University of Kentucky. So going into college now, I was like, well, I can go to UK because they have a really good architectural program. And I was like, and they have an art school. So if I want to do art classes for like a minor, that works out perfect. My mom got super nervous because I applied to just UK, nowhere else. I put all my eggs in one basket, and she hated that because she was nervous about it. Because most of my high school either went to the community college or Moorhead. Like there was 6 of us, I think, from my graduating class that went to UK. And then if you didn't go to one of those 3 things, you went to the military. So a lot of people stayed back home. I wanted to get away from it, even though I'm only an hour and a half away, 2 hours away. It's far enough that makes a difference. But I went to UK. However, even though I put all my eggs in one basket and got into UK, being super bad with senioritis and not wanting to do anything, I didn't do the proper research, which I think is kind of a thing makes me over research stuff now. The School of Architecture had a completely separate application that you had to apply. I did not do that one. So therefore, even though I got into UK, I was not officially in the architecture program. So during my summer counseling session, I had to decide what I wanted to do. I didn't have to declare a major as a freshman. And they're like, you can just apply in the next year. So you'll start, And the lady was really cool about it. My counselor, she was just like, it just means your first year you can take and knock out all your gen eds and then start your architecture classes the next year. It's not a big deal.
Great.
But I did find out that not having a major, like being undeclared, can sometimes make you, at least at the time, the way they did it, you sign up for classes later than people who have a specified major have preference on classes.
Oh, dang.
So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, which makes sense. If you're in engineering, you should get the preference for the engineering classes or the art classes over someone who doesn't know what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to change my major to my minor, which was art. And I was like, that will allow me to go ahead and knock out the art classes I want quicker for my minor before I go in the architecture program. So I was like, oh, I'll just play the system and make it work better.
Yeah.
And then as this semester, my first semester went on, I met people that were in the architecture program and stuff like that. And they were all really cool, but I didn't like, from what I was hearing from them, it wasn't anything bad. The school was very good at what they do and the architects they produce. I just didn't like the teaching style based off the way they were talking about stuff. And then on top of that, I took intro to 3D. It was Art 103 or whatever. And my professor in that class was Jim Wade.
The infamous.
So that class was super fun. I think it kind of just like grabbed me, and I realized I was like, oh, cool. I can literally focus on school where I just get to work with my hands. Because even though all through high school and stuff, everything I had done was like drawing by hand and stuff like that, I like to work with my hands. When I was younger, I was a Boy Scout. Me and my dad did the Pinewood Derby cars.
Yeah.
The one time we bought a car instead of making it ourselves, like the prefabbed ones. It sucked. It was horrible. It didn't do good. The best car I ever made, we called it Flintstone Mobile, and it looked like a piece of crap. I hand carved it when I was little, and it worked great. So my dad worked construction when I was younger. Then he's been a firefighter my whole life, was an EMT. He's an equipment operator for the city now. And he's always had a project going on at the house. And that's really important because he's always had a garage, tools, things I've been introduced to. I've built decks, cleared places out, moved tons of firewood when I was younger. So just manual labor and using your hands and learning how to use like basic tools. So like we were talking about earlier, angle grinders.
Yeah.
Getting yelled at that I grabbed the wrong socket size or stuff like that.
Oh, because you didn't know?
Yeah, having to learn the different sizes and stuff and switching between.
Can your dad look at a nut or a bolt and know what socket size it is?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I haven't had to work closely with him on anything, but yes, he used to. I don't know if he's lost that skill.
I don't think you lose it. I don't think you lose it. I don't have that, but I remember like at our old house rental property, we had a really great older gentleman next door neighbor, in his 70s. And he was helping me on something with my truck. And he was like, okay, I'll go get wrenches. He went, he just brought just the two.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we have a set. I have adjustable ones. And he just looked and got exactly the right size. And that's when I was like, this guy's the real deal. Anyways. So you're raised by a real deal.
I would like to be that way, but I still always I'm normally pretty good at picking the right one now, but I still always second guess myself, and I'll whip out a tape measure or double check the size and stuff beforehand.
I mean,
so
yeah, until you make it,
I like to make sure things are right, so I try not to take out as little guessing as possible.
Yeah, don't have to walk across the shop twice.
Yeah, instead of I'll always take the bolt with me to go find the socket.
That's a good
saves you a lot of walking.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. So
there's no shame in that because it makes things more efficient.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I already lost our thread. Where were we? You're talking UK.
I had 103 of Jim Wade.
Yeah. Okay. How could I
forget? Really hit it off. Jimmy was a really good professor. I love the way he taught and stuff. And like our first day in class, I don't know if it was like something he decided to do or if it was just like what the 103 classes always had to do at the time. But like we sat down at tables. We didn't have assigned seating or anything like that. And every table had like a pack of straws and tape. and you had to build a sculpture as a group. So our very first thing was a group project. And I was like, God, this sucks because I hate group projects. Especially if you have to make something, because it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like people collaborate all the time, but when you have a bunch of people who don't know each other and you have no idea what their creative minds are like or what they prefer or anything like that, it can kind of make it hard to make something. Or people butt heads. Luckily, the table I was setting up, we're all pretty chill people. We made like a little hourglass. So we took the straws out of the wrappers, made the hourglass shape, and then we actually crumbled up the wrappers to use as sand to go back and forth through it. But it's just something real simple. But I thought it was kind of a neat thing, even though I hated it at the time. Looking back on it, it was kind of a neat thing to do. But I really liked that class, and it kind of reminded me that I like to work with my hands. To like, I like to draw. It was really satisfying to like build something and it's there in front of you, like you can physically touch it. Um, I like to, and it also kind of goes back to I like to find out how things are made. Like I am the worst person. Like you probably hate me at a museum because I want to touch everything. So
I mean, I just put this stuff. I'm not a guard. I just I install it and then I leave, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, as long as it's still on the wall at the end of the day.
Yeah. So the kind of a timeline. So I'll be 31 in October. Mm-hmm. So there's my age. That was the spring of, that would have been spring of 2010. Because I started school in the fall of 2010. So spring of 2010 is when I had 103 of Jim Wade, learned about that and stuff. Went back home for the summer, worked with my dad building our big 5-tier deck that goes off the back of our house now. You think we're rich. We're not. It's just lots of time and
good at effort building into stuff.
It. Yeah. Over a long time. It took us like 2 full years to build that deck slowly. Just every paycheck add a little bit more to it and stuff like that. But so we did that, went back to school that fall. And that fall was the fall times when UK has their annual iron pour, or at least they did at the time.
Yeah.
It's been through some reiterations and being canceled and stuff for different reasons over the years, but they had their annual iron pour. That fall, I took Jim again, because he ended up teaching it, took him in the intro to sculpture class, which wasn't in the metal class yet. It was just like I guess back in the day, they used to do like plaster carving. Like they'd pour a big block of plaster and carve it down. They did bring that back while I was in school at one point. This was after I was an upperclassman. So I never got to do that part. But in that part, one of the assignments was to make a resin sand mold during the week for the workshops to have casted in the iron pour.
Okay.
I had zero clue what an iron pour was. I knew what iron was. I knew you could make it molten, but like I didn't really know anything past that. Yeah. I had no idea about mold making. Jim drew on a chalkboard to explain a simple 2-part mold. And he was like, if you don't know what to make or you don't have a piece in mind, just bring something and we'll cast it. Yeah. So like we had one girl casted like a computer mouse. Mm-hmm. Some people did like little relief sculptures they did and stuff. Pretty much everybody in my class made a 2-part mold, except for me, because I didn't understand how mold making worked. I didn't realize like undercut and stuff. So in my brain was like, I just want to make, like, I didn't know the process at all. So I wanted to just make something, see like how far you could push it.
Okay.
So, and don't ask me how, because I was just looking at books of like anatomy and animals and a bunch of weird stuff. And I made this like weird abstracted looking spider thing. So I made the thing that basically had 8 legs.
Okay.
I used grass from outside to make it like fuzzy looking on the texture. So I took clay, made an 8-legged thing. And then the top of it had this spiraling tail coming out of it, basically, that was like modeled after like a scorpion's tail, but it was really geometric.
Okay.
And I put a bunch of texture on it. So I just made this really
like oil clay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just made this like weird, it ended up becoming a doorstop basically, but made this really big. It was probably about 12 inches tall and with the legs spread out probably 10 inches or so.
Okay.
But you know, the legs went down and curved, so there was underparts under them. This tail was a spiral, like geometric, like upside down pyramid shapes stacked up. So I just brought it because I was like, I just want to try. Like it had no purpose, it had no concept behind it. I just wanted to see what you could do.
Yeah.
Right. So then Jim sits down with me and starts explaining it's going to be a 5-part mold. And as soon as he said that, I was like, do I need to change this? Like everyone else did 2 parts. Like, are you not supposed to do 5? Like that sounds hard. And so he drew on a piece of paper and he made it sound really simple.
Okay.
Which looking back on it, 5-part mold, that's easy. It's no big deal. Like my brain understands that now. At the time, I was freaked out. I was like, oh, I bit off more than I could chew. Like, this is going to be weird. But that's when I got to go down into the metal shop at UK during the week before the iron pour, and I got to make the piece. It ended up being 5 pieces. It was one main piece, 2 tops, and then a core up under it on the underside that went up in it. So it wasn't a completely solid piece because it was going to weigh a crap ton and already was going to weigh enough.
Yeah.
But I got to learn how to sprue and stuff. Right where I made my mold, I was right beside Andy Light, who was doing a production run of these. Trying to remember, they were cast iron skillets. You know, the favorite thing a lot of people like to cast.
Yeah.
Million different ways to make them.
Oh yeah.
All of them work, and none of them work at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it was like his grandmother's skill or something. He was trying to make a reproduction of them for like the whole family. If I remember correctly, I could be getting that wrong. I'm not 100% sure. It feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
But so that's like one of the first like other artists that are involved in the community that I met outside of Jim, which I didn't really understand their significance in the community at the time or like their history. I also met Andrew Marsh for the first time that week. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're making a 5-part mold. You're a rock star. Like this was cool. You're taking the effort to do this." I had no idea what I was doing though. Like Jim was pushing me through the whole way because I was just like, I'm just here with a weird thing making this same stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it came time for the iron pour. We were given the option to participate, but I did not have proper safety boots. I had boots. They were like Timberlands that my mama bought me for Christmas one year. Like they had like looking back, like I don't know why I ever wore them. And I know I wore them because, well, my mama bought them, so I was going to wear them according to my mother. But they had like fur stuff. They had synthetics on them. Like I wouldn't want to walk on a pour floor with those. My foot be gone.
Yeah.
So they just told us what time it was. I got there. I broke up my iron during class. I made the mold. I had to come in the evenings to make the mold because I didn't have enough time in class to make all 5 pieces. So we did that and then went to the pour and I was like, well, I'm just going to take pictures because I don't know what this is. So I just took pictures of the whole thing, like the entire process, them setting up, pouring the iron, stuff being down. But so, yeah, that was my first experience. And then like I uploaded all of it to a CD and gave it to Jim, I think at the time. I think I still have them on my computer somewhere.
I was going to ask, do you still have them?
I'd have to dig for them. But if they're not on my computer, they're on an SD card somewhere, stashed away in all my stuff because I don't ever throw anything away. As far as was school related.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
My first iron pour experience was I just made a mold and then took pictures of the whole process. Like I didn't participate in it. I didn't know what was going on with it or anything like that. But it was really cool. And I think it kind of reminded me of a little spark, I guess you could say, down in me. Because when I was younger, I was also kind of a pyro. Like I kind of got in trouble for catching stuff on fire when I was little. I was a kid who liked to use firecrackers and stuff to either blow toys up or like see if you could launch them in space. So that type of stuff. I always loved fire, loved building in high school big bonfires, people coming out for them and stuff like that. So I've always been kind of drawn to stuff dealing with fire. Lo and behold, slowly making a career out of that in a sense.
Yeah.
But so it kind of hit that, and I was like, "This is cool. Like this is molten metal shooting out of this bigger piece of metal furnace thing." I didn't understand what that was at the time either. I was like, "And you get to carry it over, and then like I sat there all night because my mold was like one of the last ones to be poured because they were palleting them in because we were at UK when I was older. We had them up on the hill, but at that time the iron pours were down like this little pit. Not super safe when you have it's fine if you're doing a small pour with just a class, but when you have a big public event, it's a lot of bodies in a very cramped space. And even though it's outside, the fumes from like putting the iron and the coke in at the top of the furnace and stuff, you had to make sure you wear respirators. I saw people that would get like overheated and stuff and have to be taken down or like pulled out and stuff. So it wasn't the best place, but it's what they had. So, and they've been doing it for years. And everyone signed off on it safety wise until new regulations and stuff, and we had to move things. But so that was my first experience. I had no clue what it was. I was fascinated by it, and I wanted to learn more. But they only do it once a year, so I was like, I have to wait a full another year to attempt to do this. And I had mentioned that to Jim, and he asked me how I felt about camping in the woods. And I was like, I mean, I was a Boy Scout. I can camp in the woods. He goes, how would you feel about doing it for a month? And I was like, sounds kind of cool. I was like, why? And he was like, well, there's this place up in Indiana called Sculpture Trails. This is their workshops had just started in 2010.
Okay,
So
yeah, it's
like
new.
the official ones. I mean, Jerry and them had been putting stuff up there
Oh yeah,
for quite a
for
while.
sure.
But so they had 2010 and 2011 for the workshops. So this was the fall of 2011. So they just had their second year, from my understanding. So he's like, you should just apply and see if you get in. So I applied, had no idea what I was doing. That December, because the Ironport UK was in November. It was the first weekend of November normally. I think like midway through January of the spring semester, I got the letter back from Jerry Massey and Sculpture Trail saying I had been accepted as an intern, cast iron intern. I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, well, I know what I'm doing in July. I guess I'm driving to somewhere in Indiana. I have no idea where it's at, and going to learn to cast iron. So, fast forward to that summer, because after that, I didn't have any other sculpture classes to take.
Okay.
I had to knock out the other prereqs, drawing, 2D, all that fun stuff. But then comes Sculpture Trails. On my way up there, I had the most horrible experience getting there, because at the time, like if you type Sculpture Trails on a Apple Map, Google Maps, or whatever, it pings it and will take you straight there.
Right now, yeah, thank God.
In 2012, it was not there on it. Like if you just
Yeah.
typed in Sculpture Trails, nothing popped up. You'd have to type in the exact address. And my GPS was like kind of knew where it was, but if you look on a map, it's in the middle of the woods. So like
Yeah, because
the
even
roads
in
weren't even
2010, like cell phones weren't. I'm trying to think. Like,
well, they have Wi-Fi and stuff up there now, but at the time, like when we went up there, you're cut off from
like
everything.
I think that at that point in my life, like I had a cell phone, but then I also had a GPS, like a that you
Yeah,
would keep in your glove compartment.
yeah. I used to have one of those. Yeah, my that summer was the first time using, and it may have been user error was new to it, but that was
No,
first. That was when I first got my first iPhone. Was that summer?
okay.
Because
Okay.
my old phone had shattered and broke, so I just dropped it walking to
Yeah,
class
I
one day.
mean,
Nothing
fortunately,
fancy.
I have I one time I was at the metal museum and I accidentally dropped a hammer on my phone and it like shattered the screen of the phone.
Yeah,
But fortunately I wasn't using it as a GPS because it was like before the times when phones really were like, it was before Instagram, before all of that. But then like I had no way to call anybody. So I'm like in Memphis alone. I mean, I was at the metal museum, but like if I had had an emergency on the way back to Georgia, like I didn't have a
yeah.
phone. So anyway, so yeah, so I think they make them better nowadays than they used to,
Yeah.
which is good. Anyway, so your GPS, you just didn't get there?
Well, my GPS found the right way, right? It like rerouted a few times and stuff. But before we left, like I left from back home in Ashland, Kentucky. So from Lexington it's 3.5 hours. From there, it was like over 5, because at
Oh,
the time with construction
yeah.
work on I-64, which never seems to end here, it's one of those roads. And the day before I left, or not the day, like the week before I left, I had to meet Jim in Lexington to get leathers. So I don't have any
Yeah.
safety gear. I bought boots. My dad helped me. We went to the flea market back home and bought work boots, because there's a retired AK Steel guy who just stockpiled boots for years that he was allowed, that he didn't run through, and he sold them. So like probably one of the best pair of boots I've ever had. I have no idea what brand they were, and they lasted until 2019.
Oh,
So
dang. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got a lot of use out of them. And also my mom was a very petite little woman, and I thought she scared Jim at one point, because she was like, is he gonna, like, she started grilling him with questions when we were picking up the leathers, like, is he gonna be safe? Are you gonna take care of him? Because she knew Jim was gonna be up there the whole month.
Yeah. Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, Mom, leave him alone. I'll be fine. Um, but got those driving up there and stuff. I get almost all the way up there. I am now that I know like where it's at and I can do it from memory. I was probably 15 minutes from trails.
Hmm.
And on one of the roads, it wasn't a back road yet. It was still one of the main roads, at least for that part of Indiana. I'm passing one of the high schools, and a deer
Oh my
runs out
God.
in front of me. And I know, and I have been taught this since I was could start to think to drive. Never swerve, just keep going. If you hit it, you hit it. My dad always
Yeah.
said that.
Yep.
And I
Okay.
swerved, and when I swerved,
Ah.
I went off the edge because there's a drop off. It's not just a ditch. I didn't go fully off the edge. I only had one tire go off. But the issue was the tire went off right before these people's driveway, which they had just had re-blacktop, so it was higher, and it like popped my tire.
Oh.
So it like I went down just enough to where I hit real hard. So I was speeding, 100% speeding. I don't know how fast I was going. I
But
wasn't
there
going
was
like
also a
crazy,
deer. Like, let's
but
just water under
yeah,
the bridge.
but
Who cares
popped
how
it,
fast you were going?
popped the
Popped your
tire.
tire. Oh my
It's in
God.
July. I pull off into the school's parking lot to change the tire. It is so hot that I can't get the Jeep that I was driving at the time jacked up because it's like sinking into the asphalt. I
Ah.
can't do this. Luckily, a gentleman like was driving by in an old truck. He's like, "Do you have a full size jack?" I was like, "No, I only have the jack that came with the Jeep." And he's like, "Well, let me help you get it over to this concrete pad. We'll use my jack." Super helpful guy. I don't know his name, but
Yeah.
super helpful. It
God
was really
bless
nice.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, they helped me get the donut on it and stuff. And I drove the rest of the way to the trails. So my first introduction to the trails wasn't actually seeing Jerry there because he hadn't got there yet.
Yeah.
Um, I got to meet his mother, Diane,
Yeah.
sweetest lady ever, and her husband, Jerry.
Yeah.
And I walk in and I'm like drenched in sweat in a UK shirt and jeans and dirty. And on the couch sitting are like two young women who are also there,
Yeah.
Maya Kerner and Amy
Mm.
Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we would call them tiny crew because they're very short. But they're sitting there and they're just looking at me like, where the hell did this guy come from? So that was my first impression of people I've never met in a different place I've never been. So that was fun. But yeah, so worked that whole summer at Trails. Um, we were doing about 2 pours a week. You would get everything prepped, molds done. We do a pour. Typically, we were shooting for Thursday nights, and then immediate turnaround and do one Saturday night. That summer, we also had a big commission for these big panels that were going to be part of a public sculpture and a tree. I believe that's what Jim was helping head up. That's why he was there the whole summer. So it's kind of crazy. They've done a lot to make the experience a lot better for
Oh,
the
it's
interns.
fabulous now. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I was never through there until I can't even remember. I figured it out at one point, but maybe 2016, 2017 or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's nice.
It's a
So
super
you were
good
there kind of at the,
early. Yeah. We were still trying
yeah.
to figure out, like, we had days off, which didn't work out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the way it worked. But also, that commission was so taxing on top of everything else you normally do there, like
Yeah.
helping the other artists that are there and everything
Yeah.
else. I think it just like mentally drained everybody. Like by the end of it, wasn't that people were mad at each other. People were just like agitated because we had to hit a deadline. Like we had to finish this in that month.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody watching and you yourself, everyone's been those points where like trying to get a project done.
Yeah.
And like the littlest things, like someone breathing the wrong way can agitate you.
Yeah.
Even if you're like the most calm person ever, it just happens.
At my work, we have a saying, and it's like the single grain of rice.
Yes.
And so like something will happen and my coworker is really sweet and she'll say something like, "Are you okay?" or whatever. And I'll be like, it's a single grain of rice. And she's like, "Don't let it be the one, one that tips the scale," sort of a thing. Like
I always use the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. It's like when it's just that little thing. So anyways.
But that first summer was really like educational. I learned a ton. I learned that I don't like pouring iron during the day. It sucks, especially in July heat up there.
I was going to say because of the temperature.
Yeah, it was super hot that summer.
Yeah.
July gets pretty toasty up there. So if you're not used to the heat, it can be rough. We had an intern from England who only lasted 2 weeks because the climate change was
It's
just,
so
it was like a
different.
climate shock.
Yeah.
So she ended up flying back to England. So that kind of sucked to lose
Yeah.
somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really good experience, and I would recommend it to anybody who's interested in iron casting, whether you're just starting or
Mm-hmm.
you're considered an expert at it. If you just want to go up there and intern for the summer, do it like without hesitation. But it's not for everybody. It might not be your cup of tea,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. That's no biggie. Jerry's made it a lot easier for people to come up. I think they have like a week-long program now and stuff. But it's really cool. Learned a lot. So I got to do all that iron casting that summer, learn all this mold making and stuff before I ever took an actual metal
Yeah.
shop class. So then
Awesome.
going into the fall, I felt a little bit more like ready for my class. And then turn
Mm-hmm.
around, our first project is a Ludo mold
Oh.
and no sand casting until the Iron 4 in November. So I was like,
Huh.
oh, I don't know what Ludo is, but I know how to make a mold in sand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, but did that, went through school, had iron pieces and stuff. I think I'm the only person that I know of that has interned at trails and has never put a piece of art in the woods.
Mm.
So it kind of goes back to, I guess, like one thing I've learned all the years up there and stuff. I don't like a lot of the people you've had on the show. I respect, I love their stories, and they're like kind of iron casting heroes as far as like
Yeah.
people who know a lot of stuff. I consider them artists and stuff like that. I don't personally consider myself an artist, and it's not like a dig or anything like that. Um, who was the gentleman? Wes Jacobs. He's from England. He was a guest we had at UK to talk to us and stuff. And part of his presentation when he was there, he said at the time he considered himself a maker, and that kind of like really resonated with me. I like to make stuff. I love learning about processes. I love learning how things work. I just like to make things. I don't fit the typical academic mold of like super conceptual stuff, which is also why I probably didn't do super well in school. Because like you have to have like, because I was a BFA at UK.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't finish as one, but I was a BFA, and you have to have a body of work, and it all makes sense and stuff like that, and it has to be like tied together. I really struggled with that because I have never been like when I look back at everything I've ever made, like sometimes there's a concept to it, but I just truly enjoy making things because of the form and the way they look. I just like the way things look. Or since I do sculpture, I like the way things feel too, even though people don't like you touching their stuff all the time. Like if something has a texture on it, I just want to touch it. I just want to feel how it feels. I want to feel the weight of it, see how that stuff. I love when you like think something's really heavy and you pick it up and it's not. I love messing with people like that. Coke that we
Oh
use,
yeah.
as our fuels. I love that stuff. Joked with my stepmom and threw her like a little small
Yeah.
piece, and she thought it was huge and like freaked out. My dad thought it was hilarious. She didn't at the time, but now she thinks it's funny.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I learned a lot at Trails, which pushed through for the rest of my time at UK. I left UK in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and like complete transparency, I didn't finish at UK. Never graduated. I think I have like a semester left. Uh, Kind of got in a really bad spot, both money wise, as far as school's expensive.
Yeah.
Without scholarships and stuff, is expensive. And I kind of worked at the university and worked a ton to pay for school, along with help from my mother and my stepfather, um, which I'm very grateful for. But I kind of just got to the point where like I just felt drained, like mentally, and like probably like the onset of like having slight depression and stuff, which I had never experienced before. So that was a little bit weird. Which I feel like a lot of people can go through that stuff. Everybody handles it differently. But I just kind of like sat down one day. I was struggling in my classes. I was working all the time because I needed the money to pay bills and pay for school, but that was reflecting by not producing enough. I wasn't focused in school and stuff, which is fine. I mean, everybody goes through struggles. It happened, like looking back on it. And I just straight up told my mom, I was like, I need to go get a job. Like, I need to leave school and just go work. Like, my brain's not here. Like, I am not focused on this. And I just feel like I'm wasting time. So I just left school and went and got a job, which is fine. The
Yeah.
job paid me enough that I was still able to go do iron casting stuff. So that was a benefit of it. So like Sloss, I helped out at the first fire they had at Memphis, which was super fun. Love that. Really sad I haven't been able to go the last few years. Because I know you talked about one of your last podcasts. They limited the size this last
Well, I
year.
think that they always did though. That
Yeah,
isn't and now like I'm gonna have
they've always done that, but they only have
yeah.
so much space.
Yeah. And I
So
think that it's actually like a great benefit that it
yeah,
is really personal and intimate. And if you really want to go,
yeah,
you just sign up the day that the tickets come out. You just
yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, life has happened, so I haven't been able to go back down. I love James Vanderpool.
Yeah. They're not
He's an
going
amazing man.
anywhere.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know he's not. He's got new babies. He can't go anywhere. He has to
Yeah.
stay.
But like they're gonna keep having that and you'll go
Yeah, but
when
I've been to Fire. I've bringing him back up because he's a big part of my education in iron. Jim Wade, we drove down together with him to repair days to help me cast some stuff for school at one point because we didn't have any iron ports coming to school. I
yeah.
wanted something casted. He's like, well, we can go to repair days. James is throwing some iron around. And I was like, okay, cool. So we just drove down there and did that. Um, and then my like first sloss, because that's an important thing that's also coming up that I'm trying to block
Yeah.
out time to go to.
Yeah.
My first sloss was in 2013.
Okay.
So it was literally the spring after my first year at Trails. So I knew what iron casting was. I really, really enjoyed it and stuff. And when I heard about Sloss, a bunch of us in the metal arts program wanted to go. So I signed up for that. Got to go down there. I met a bunch of kids. The first people I met were the group from Mass Art that was
Yeah.
down there. I'm trying to remember everybody's name. The three main people I can remember are Paul Watson,
Yeah.
Fricky. Cannot remember Fricky's last name to save
That's
my
his
life.
last.
I have
It's
him on
David
Instagram.
Fricky.
It's David Fricky. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I was
And
like, you
then
can't remember his
Sarah.
last name. That's his last
That's
name.
his last name.
And
And
Sarah.
then
Yeah.
Sarah Allen.
Yeah.
Is it Allen?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I am horrible with names and
You
saying
did
them. So
fantastic.
if I get anybody's names wrong the rest of this, I apologize greatly, and I will make it up to you.
No, but you
So like
just dropped
that
them
was the
all
first
like a boss.
yeah. But that was the first group of people because we got down there like a day early and we were trying to figure out where to set up tents and stuff. So I got
Yeah.
down there before some of the other
Yeah.
people did. And so those were the first people I met, Massachusetts people. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, they all seem really cool. A little crazy. Fricky was running around making furniture out of scrap pieces of wood he could find, like he was making benches and stuff. So that was pretty neat. I could tell just how creative that group was and how close they were. So that was my first introduction as far as like another group of students from a different place at a conference like this. So I liked it a lot. I've been to every sloss since then except for 20. I did not go to 2015. That's when I was having issues with school and stuff.
Yeah.
So I just did not go that far. But I was at 2017. I volunteered in 2019. That was super fun before COVID happened.
Yeah, you may have saved my life. I feel like in the gallery, or with something. Did
There's
you
a
do
lot of there's a lot of running around. My brain is scattered from that sloss.
Did you sweep with me? The warehouse?
I remember sweeping a lot of stuff. I may have.
So there was that big warehouse on the other side of the road that we had. Like, I can't even remember which one of the it was probably Toby was the juror for that show that was in that space. Yeah. But it was like we needed to sweep the whole thing.
Yeah, I just remember I swept a lot.
Yeah.
I carried a lot of chairs places for the different panels and things.
Yeah.
And I never realized how fast I could run in a pair of steel toes. So getting from spot to spot. Being a volunteer, if anyone is thinking about going to sloss coming up, if you not sure if you want to go or if it's too expensive, I would highly suggest volunteering.
Yeah.
You don't get to see all the panels and stuff. They tried really hard to let us go to the ones we wanted. They were really good about that. But I just kind of like the panels are cool and I had seen those in years past and stuff and everything like that. But I really just wanted to get like the full volunteer experience, like just help out as much as I can. I kind of double dipped while I was down there because the job I had at the time, I was a logistics coordinator at TQL. Loved the job. People worked with great, but I kind of double dipped. I was able to go to Sloss because I was down there visiting a customer of mine in Birmingham.
Oh, nice.
So, I did Sloss all that week, and then I just had to disappear for about a 2-hour period and go have a business meeting.
I mean, I don't think that that's double dipping, though. I think that that's totally legit. And I appreciated that you were there. If you helped, I think that I remember us sweeping and I was probably crying. But yeah, I mean, I have to say for anybody that is interested in volunteering, just they'll
Just do
put a
it.
call out. Yeah, they'll put a call out on probably, all of social media and their website and everything. But it's like from a former committee member, because I'm not going to be on the committee this year, but we needed all of the help that we could get,
Yes. Yeah.
all of it. And
I got a very nice letter too, thanking me for everything I did, which is very sweet of Sloss to send. So I like that. I don't have it right now; it's packed up since we're looking at moving soon. But yeah. So I have that. When I got that, I wasn't expecting it. It was awesome. They treated us really well and stuff. Marshall was there at that time.
Yeah,
the dude's awesome.
Marshall Christie.
Yeah. So it went really well though. I liked it a lot. So if anyone is looking to volunteer, definitely do it. If you have any hesitations, if not, just go and enjoy some panels and pour some iron with people. I actually like, as far as like incorporating like future stuff with old stuff, since Sloss is a very historic site. Because I love trails so much, I took the T logo and 3D printed the T logo, but I did it out of a material called from a company's material called Protopasta. So they use filaments for printing, but they infuse it with stuff. So I printed the trails logos out of iron PLA.
Oh, I remember these. I do.
I use them at the Harder barter market.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't go with the intention of getting stuff from the market like typically would be, right? I was just trying to trade people. I wasn't even trying to trade. I was just trying to give people little cast iron teas, because like I soaked them in like peroxide and stuff because they were plastic. I was trying not to eat them, but I got them all rusty by the time I got down there. So I had these little rusty trail teas that weighed like an ounce, if that.
Yeah.
It was kind of neat. So people thought they were iron, but they weren't.
Yeah.
So, technology, super fun. It saves your back occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that. Liked it a lot and everything. And just to show how much, without thinking about it in our everyday lives, iron, or at least our foundry skills, will creep back into your life. While I worked in logistics, my number one customer was specialty foundry products, the people who make like stuff for industrial foundries. Yeah. That's who I was visiting in Birmingham. I know a lot of people probably ordered stuff for their schools and stuff through them potentially.
I feel like they may even sponsor.
So they were sponsoring Sloss at one point. I don't know who still does, but great company. Love those people to death. But I just thought it was funny, doing a day job that has nothing to do with art at all or the community or whatever. And then lo and behold, my number one customer ended up being foundry, especially foundry producing like products. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. It finds its way back in whether you want it to or not.
But we do. We want it to. We want it to. Yeah.
So, well, you look for things that and that's something I understood and could talk to them about without much issue. So, but I really liked Sloss. So did all those years and stuff. Got to meet a ton of other people through that. Two other really big people like helped me learn a lot of stuff. I feel like I need to mention are Robin Baker and Kristen Overstake. Is it Overstake? Yeah. They were there my first year at Trails. So I interned from 2012, 2013, and 2014. So I did 3 years in a row.
Wow. That's like a lot.
I loved it. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
So learned a lot from both of them. Robin was the guy who like managed the workshops for the mold making and stuff. And then him and Kristen like were our port. Like Robin was the main one the first year, but like him and Kristen ran the port floor. Okay. And like when it comes to iron casting, like you talk about how you have to have like a group of people you trust and stuff. Yeah. It's one thing I kind of like about Trails each year as I go back up there. By the time I get up there for fire at night at the end of the month, I know that they've been trained like everyone else that's been through Trails has, no matter where they came from. So like I don't even second guess whether or not I can trust one of the interns or the people pouring iron, unless they've directly told me it's their first pour, which doesn't mean I won't trust them. I just give them advice on stuff.
Yeah.
And even the people that've been there for all month, like the kids this last year were super responsive and like receptive of like,
they were firecrackers.
Advice. Yeah, I love them to death.
I know. I fell in love with all of them. Like I was like, I have to leave now. I want to stay with you guys. Yeah.
So, but like Robin and Kristen learned a ton from them while I was up there. And then obviously over the years, the different artists that come up there, because they open up the artist slots to anybody. I mean, I've worked with, Richard Brome, who's a rural British sculptor. unfortunately, I found out that he passed away this last year.
Oh.
But learned a ton from him. And then I've also worked all the way down to, we had a kid named, I don't know I can't remember his last name, but Morgan. He was a Boy Scout and he was 18. He had never done any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So like I've worked from people who are like brand new, fresh, have no idea what they're doing, to like, a guy who has a like 300-page manual on casting.
Yeah.
So learned a lot. A lot of different mold making techniques. Now, if I look at something, it doesn't matter what it is. It just might take more time, but I can look at anything, even if something's like 80 parts. I'd be like, that's not a big deal. Mainly because I've seen people do it now, and it's like stuck in my head. I know how to do it. But learned a ton from people up there. I'd say that's probably like the iron, like getting the experience of casting iron is important. Like learning the techniques, learning how to properly lift and not kill yourself, and not being tired after like 5 minutes and be able to go for an hour and a half, 2 hours straight. It's really important. But like just the wealth of knowledge as far as like how to approach different things, like as far as making, like not necessarily conceptually, but like seeing how different people work. I always like to use the cast iron skillet as a good example, because cookware is hard.
Yeah.
Like Dutch ovens, cast iron skillets, like cookware, metal iron does not like to be thin.
It's thin.
There's 1,000 different ways to make those molds. Some of them work, some of them don't. Sometimes it just depends on the conditions. Like, oops, your metal shrunk just a teeny bit too much and made a hairline crack through the whole thing. So that happens, and it sucks. I think the one time I think I've been the saddest for someone else's iron piece was at UK, the shop tech, and he also teaches now. It's Jeremy Colbert.
Yeah,
love Jer.
Hey, he's like he's on the list. Like he's I think looking at his calendar to schedule an appointment, an interview.
Yeah.
So
he's a wealth of knowledge. But like he casted a Dutch oven at Sauce one time, and he knew he'd have to like open the mold potentially to keep it from shrinking.
Yeah.
And we thought we got it in time, but when he pulled the Dutch oven out and stuff, if you held it up to the light, you could see a like hairline crack through the, like it was still technically connected, but you could see a hairline crack through it. And I feel like I've seen that, and he's went after that a few times, and he also has these like straw hats.
Right.
He's tried casting before.
Yeah.
So I think everybody has like that one item that they tried
like
casting.
The white
that's
whale.
Like their, it's their white whale. For me, recently, it's became like I know earlier I said I'm not super into like conceptual stuff, which is true, but to deal with like personal things that have happened in my life and everything, I've started like looking at casting objects that deal with like different family members of mine that aren't necessarily with us anymore.
Yeah.
So like my grandfather, like I have a giant hat collection. I have tons and tons of hats, but they're not all pristine. Like some people would have, like I wear a hat until it's like crusty and stuff and I can't wear it anymore. Like, I have the hat I wore the first month. The first time I was at Betrayals for the whole month. It was white when I got there, and when I left, it was rusty.
As it should be, I feel like, as it should be.
I've tried casting hats recently in a bunch of different ways, trying different gating techniques and stuff. I have this one that sits on my desk, so I look at it every day because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. My camera quality probably sucks, but the casting came out really well, except for the bill.
Oh, yeah. You were hiding that with your hand.
Yeah. So I'm not ashamed of. I actually kind of like the way it came out, but it got really good detail. You can't see, but it's an old Miller hat that had the big embossed letters.
Yeah, I could tell it was Miller.
But it sits on my desk. It's my Papa's old hat he used to wear all the time.
Yeah.
So I've done that. I have a giant stack of bells I still have to go through. My grandmother used to collect bells.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do one of those. The issue is I'm super indecisive and I can't decide which one I want to do. Mm-hmm. And bells are also a little scary of a thing to cast because how thin they are.
Yeah.
They can be a little tough. So just trying to find the time to do that stuff. But
is it about like the memoir of them?
Yeah, it's just kind of like I guess the way I would put it is it's more like iron because it's very important to me. Like I consider iron precious to me, like personally, like just everything that's the process, how much time it takes to do the process. Like, because like the mold making part, people think's a big chunk of it, but like Jerry Massey always told me, like getting your piece of iron is only like 10%. of the work. The other 90% is how you finish it, lighting, showing, everything else, right?
Yeah.
So iron's precious to me because it's precious because of all the people I've met, the friends I've made through it, the connections and stuff. So it's a big part of my life. So instead of like, I guess if you were to cast something precious in like remembrance of someone, like they do statues and stuff in bronze and everything, to me, my brain was just like, well, if I want to make like an object to be kind of like as a memento of somebody, to me, I'm like, well, I want to cast that in iron.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like the material following the idea or anything like that. It's just iron's precious to me, so I want that precious object in iron because it kind of like ties it back to me, I guess, a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how it goes in my head.
No, it does. And it also, it kind of, from my perspective, is kind of like an immortalization too of the object. Cause it's like a hat, which is fabric. And, you know, I don't know, like that was a ball cap. So it's like, I don't know if there was like plastic or whatever in the brim, but it's like, that's only going to last
so long.
But in iron, you know, also, we don't know. It's interesting. Sometimes I think, well, this is kind of like a weird personal aside, but I've had some things stolen that I cast that I'm over it now, but I'm at the point where I wonder if whoever stole them or if they just stole, I'm assuming they stole them for scrap because I just was living in the city and I had a big rubber tub of stuff that I cast in grad school. And it was like, let me see if I can name my name. Like I did some cast iron rubber duckies, like never made, like I just cast a bunch of components my last year of grad school. And so it was like, I made a ton of these like little tiny cup, saucer, and spoons with like sand mold. I made one sand mold that was, I don't know how many parts. And it was these 4, so I guess it wasn't a ton. It was 4, coming clean, but 4 little cup, saucer, and spoons. And I made the spoons out of brass. I like forged the spoons because I'm like a metalsmith. And so I like made the appropriate size spoon and then cast all 4 of them in this one mold. So there was cup, saucer, and spoons, like doll size, like doll tea party size toys. And then I can't remember what else. And then I had 3 cast iron, like baby dolls. And I just wonder if they still exist because they were
someone has them sitting on their table somewhere.
Yeah, because they were so kind of like custom. So like I'm a big flea market or I go flea market, art antique mall, stores. But there's like I feel like a difference between, and as there should be, what you see in antique malls for like cast iron, you know, they'll have cast iron toys, cast iron banks. There's lots of different cast iron like hooks and door stops, and then there's like irons, and there's like so many different things that were made in cast iron that nowadays wouldn't be because it's like plastics and all that. But then if you go and look at one of our community's exhibitions, like the exhibitions at Sloss, like it's like those, a lot of them are one-offs, not all of them are one-offs, but a lot of them are one-offs. And the finish is really considered and the parting lines will be really considered. Whereas maybe in something that was like an industrial cast iron toy, like the part lines are kind of sloppy and like they weren't ground very well. And then they just like painted it. And so there's like I feel like there's a line between what was made commercially historically and like what we're making now. And these like baby dolls, like I finished them, like in my opinion, I finished them very well and like even sewed christening gowns for them.
Well, I mean, it's very different because like in a production place like that, they're just pumping the stuff out, right? That hat, I was sitting with it in my lap with a Dremel tool, going over the part lines as cleanly as I could because I didn't want to mess up the texture. Like I was trying to be as careful as possible to draw that part line back, but not damage the textures I was able to achieve in it.
Yeah.
Like it was really like careful and being really gentle with it, even though it's iron. Like I was trying to be.
Oh yeah, because one slip and like you can't get that texture back. There's I mean, you can fake it and you can try, but there's nothing like that just right?
The way it
From the
comes out,
sand. Yeah, there's nothing like it. You can't fake it. So I sometimes wonder if like those things that I made that are not in my possession anymore, if they were just brought to the scrapyard and whatever, or if someone was like, this is like I don't know, but I bet they were
I think
just
that's
scrapped. Maybe they're at the scrapyard in like the main office. Like
well, it's
what?
like this stuff. I mean, this stuff I'm making, like say, way down in the future, it gets lost, I lose it, something like that. I mean, it could end up in a thrift store or something. And someone's like, "Ooh, I wonder how this cast
Yeah.
iron hat was made, or this bell, or something." Like,
I mean,
kind of neat.
it
It's
could
gonna probably outlive me.
Oh
So,
yeah. And so it's like then that memory of your grandfather, even if that memory is disconnected because the hat goes to someone else, it's still
yeah,
the like the homage, the effort is still
yeah.
there.
Like I don't know about everybody else, but like mold making is kind of like a very zen therapeutic. Like I know some people get stressed or like parts not working, or anything, but like I can set, and this might also be a like artifact from having Jim Wade as a teacher, but like I can set forever and just work on a part line before I even ram sand. Like make it as smooth as possible, as clean as possible. Jim's part lines are insane, but like just make really clean. Like it's kind of therapeutic almost, like just sitting there's the oil sand. Like I don't know, I can sit there and talk to someone for hours and just work on that. I'll work on the same thing over and over and over until it's like perfect. But it's nice because then your mold goes together nicer too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then also the tighter the parting line, the less flashing,
hmm
you know.
I've had a mold lift before because I casted a hat. It was another hat I was trying just to. Not every one I've casted has been like that's what the piece I want, like that Miller hat was. Some of
Yeah.
them I've just casted to see like they're made of different materials, like what texture will come out. Honestly, a lot more of the castings I've done recently in the last few years haven't been about an end piece. It's just been about trying something new,
Mhm.
which I think people sometimes like are a little scared. Maybe it's just because I don't consider myself like a practicing artist. I just like to make things. So I don't get as attached to like, oh, this has to come out perfect, which granted, I will. I'm sure people have seen me a little grumpy if I've seen my mold be poured incorrectly or something. But
Yeah.
I get really nerdy and technical about the stuff. Like I love
Yeah.
knowing how something works and like how it properly needs to go. When you hit the mold, you need to hit it, not
Yeah.
dribble into it or stuff. Because at least for me, it's a real big pet peeve when people do that. Because like if I mess up pouring my mold, it's one thing. But
Yeah.
like if I'm
Yeah.
pouring someone else's, I do not want to be the reason that it didn't come out. Because like
Yeah.
someone puts all the time and effort into making a mold and making sure it's designed properly to work out right. I mean, outside of, I mean, I can't. If you're not the person running the furnace, you can't control how hot the metal is, and if you're not the
Yeah.
person leading the pour floor, you can't control where the metal's going. But damn sure, I know that if I get to a mold and I have to pour it, I'm gonna hit it, and either we're gonna run out of metal
Yeah.
or it's gonna work.
Yeah.
So no in between. Um, so I kind of use iron recently, last few years, as like the events. So not sauce in 2019 because it's been since that. But like
Yeah.
going the trails has been super therapeutic for me to get out of my head and just relax and stuff. I really want to do a piece for my mom because I lost her in 2019 or at the end of 2019 after sauce.
Mm.
So that was really rough. So and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like lost her, and then the community stuff I was doing completely got shut out.
Yeah.
So that was really rough. Haven't got to the point to where I'm comfortable enough yet to make a piece for her. I have the idea.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find pictures to um, use as like the reference to make the piece because my mom used to collect teddy bears, like
Yeah.
all types of little bears and stuff. It's really weird. The women in my family on my mom's side all collected something.
Uh-huh.
Like my grandma had bells. My aunt
Uh-huh.
used to collect like apple themed stuff. I
Okay.
don't know where it comes from or where it starts, but they just did. My grandma had like over 3,000 bells when she passed. Like
Wow.
every time
Yeah.
someone went somewhere, she got some. But for my mom, it was bears. She just loves bears. So, wanting to do something similar to that because, like, I feel like everybody that I know, like, has if you think about it down to their core, like, I feel like a lot of people have like a specific object that you could like identify them with.
Mm-hmm.
Like for
Relate
me,
to them.
yeah, a lot of people I wear hats all the time. Like I have
Yeah.
a full head of hair.
Yeah.
I keep it buzzed.
Yeah.
like I always wear hats, so it's kind of like if someone's like, "Oh, I'll see if I can find you," I'm like, just look for the tall, skinny guy. I'm
Yep.
a little pudgy
Yep.
now, but tall, skinny guy with the
You're
hat.
still skinny.
Like nine times out of 10, it'll be me. Um, but yeah, people just have those certain like their fashion or style or something they wear. Um, so you can always find them. Some people have a specific hairstyle, something like that. So
Yeah.
I feel like everybody has an
Oh yeah.
object that
Yeah.
they can kind of reference to. Um, so yeah, the pieces like that have just been really therapeutic. But I think it's also important to show like, while I'm not a practicing artist, I'm not producing artwork or bodies of shows or like applying for different shows to send pieces off to and stuff.
Hmm.
Still making things.
Yeah.
Um, been doing a lot more 3D printing and stuff because that's stuff
Uh-huh.
I can do in at my desk without issue and stuff. And I'm revisiting a set of work that I started my senior year at UK.
Okay.
Haven't got to the point where I'm going to produce any of it yet. And I'm actually looking at trying to find different ways to finish it that aren't iron
Hmm.
because I don't have access to that constantly. So
Yeah. And I think that a lot of us in the community, I mean, I don't. If I'm going to make something for myself, for my art, it's the fire conference. That's the only place
yeah,
that I feel like I can actually set down and focus on making either components for pieces or like cast the whole thing. Because a lot of the pours, like I'm kind of like you in that a lot of the times when I go, like if I'm gonna go to trails, fire at night, I'm not gonna bring a mold because I don't want to have to worry. Like I'm on vacation. Like
yeah,
I want to go. I don't want to be worried about lugging something. I don't want to be yeah. And so it's like that's kind of how it is. Even for Sloss, I even when I went as a student, not that this is something to be proud of, but it's just like a thing I just realized right now. A bug just landed on my nose. Um, I went to Sloss for the first time in 2009 with the University of Georgia with my professor. I didn't bring any molds.
yeah.
I just went to be at the conference with my peers, like the rest of the students, and then also to like help pour.
Yeah.
So I've never brought any molds to Sloss, and it's funny. I don't know why.
I've taken one mold of sauce out of all the ones I've been to.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I feel like it doesn't even really matter because I get my iron in, if I'm at repair days,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll like ask if I can make a quick mold after hours. You pay for your materials, but even then I kind of feel guilty because it should be focused on, the repairs and raising money and things like that. But um yeah, majority of the pours that I've been to, I didn't even actually cast anything.
Yeah.
And
Well, I feel a little weird because it was actually so I got a criticism in school, which was fair, that I needed to focus, which obviously I already stated I had issues focusing in school and like on my stuff. But like I always kind of gravitated towards like helping other people with their stuff, which
mhm.
kind of shows in what I do now. But like when I go to a place like trails and stuff, like I'll knock out a mold, but it might only be like two parts. Like I can do these hat molds most of the time in two parts without really an issue, depending on what shape they are in.
Yeah.
So I can knock it out, not a big deal. But I love helping people. Like I genuinely enjoy helping people make stuff. Like other people make stuff. It's weird. Like I like making my own things and everything like that. But like the satisfaction or like the feeling you get when you see someone else's eyes light up
Yeah.
when something works, like they're super excited. Like this last month when we were at Trails, Ari,
Yeah.
she's the resident up there right now.
Yeah.
She's busy. Fire at night, your brain is mush by the end of the month. She has
Yeah.
a million things she's having to do. So she just asked me to help one gentleman take his patterns out of his molds and show him how to gate them.
Uh-huh.
Something pretty simple. Showed him how we gate them and stuff. Explained to him, obviously, there's multiple ways you can do this. This is how she's set up your mold to be gated and stuff. And we gated them, shut them up, and they got casted. Out of 6 pieces, he got 5 of them. One of them didn't get casted, and hindsight's 2020. I knew I should have carved the gate a little bit differently than we had carved it.
Mhm.
But he was excited about it. He thought it was neat, rolling with it. He's like, if I need to, I'll just come back next year and do it again. So,
Nice.
all good
Yeah.
fun. Don't always have to take casting not coming out is a bad thing.
Exactly.
But he was like genuinely really excited when he saw the castings come out. I mean, that was pieces that he worked really hard on. Now he had a physical version of it in iron. I think my most like proud moment, which is really weird, is there was a artist from England, a female artist. I cannot remember her name to save the life of me because that whole
Was it a big
summer.
mold?
No,
Oh,
this was a
okay.
small mold.
Okay, never
Well,
mind.
no, this was a big mold, but we casted a rock, like
Okay.
a very large rock. She was from England, so they couldn't bring over a bunch of materials with
Yeah.
them, shipping costs and stuff like that. So she already had, I felt like, a bad impression of me because I had to give the tours when
Oh.
like artists would come in. It's like I was the
Mhm.
intern that would give the tours. I've done a
Mhm.
ton of tours of the trails, and not thinking the language differences, even though it's English, there's different
Yeah.
terminologies different. I kept telling her to make sure she wears pants because if she's not been in the woods, ticks and stuff like that, getting your legs scarred up and stuff. A lot of people would wear
Yeah.
shorts. I always work in pants. It's just
Mhm.
the way I've
Mhm.
always been. She, the entire time, thought I was talking about underwear because over there it's trousers and pants are your undergarments.
Oh dear.
So yeah,
Well,
that
that's an
was super
honest
fun. Jerry,
mistake.
yeah,
That's an
Jerry came
honest.
over to me laughing about it. He thought it was hilarious.
I mean, it is kind of
Um,
funny.
but
It's an
she
honest
spent
mistake.
she spent like her first 2 days just out in the woods trying to decide like what she'd want to cast or what she wanted to use.
Yeah.
She finally came to me and was like, "Rob, I found what I want to cast. It's this beautiful pebble." And she said pebble. So in my brain, I'm like, okay. I was like, let's go find it. I was thinking like small. I was like, maybe it's like a hand size or whatever. It
Smooth,
was a
right?
150-pound like chunk, like a mini boulder of a rock.
Oh my God.
I was like, well, I gotta go back up here with the 4-wheeler and some ratchet straps and another
Yeah.
person because I cannot lift this up because the shape of it
Yeah.
onto the back of this. But Robin Baker, again, back to
Mhm.
him, helped me a ton in figuring out the part lines and stuff on that because super organic shape. I mean, we want to talk about something that has a lot of undercuts.
Oh
Go
yeah.
chip out a giant chunk of rock and see if you can make a mold out. But we got it fully made between him. I went a little bit crazy that week, just because my brain turned into mush trying to make sure.
Mhm.
Because I wanted it. I like stressed so much. I wanted it to be perfect for her because
Mhm.
it was like her first experience doing iron casting. Like she
Yeah.
understood mold making and casting and stuff, but hadn't done iron.
Yeah.
And she made a bunch of other small stuff, but like that rock to this day is probably the prettiest iron casting I have ever produced. It had like almost zero flashing on it. It was
Wow.
hollow on the inside because she
Oh.
wanted to do a magnetic thing with it. I'm not sure how
Uh-huh.
it ever turned out.
Uh-huh.
But as far as like just technically a mold put together, it had almost no flashing for I think it was like a 15-part mold. And I
Wow.
was like, I was super impressed with it. And she was all giggly about it and like loved it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was really satisfying to see someone like that. Now, I was super stressed all week because I didn't want this to mess up because
Yeah.
I was the person like leading it with Robin, but like I was her main helper.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
I was so stressed, Jerry, after that, next 3 weeks, he's like, just go be in the woods and chop some trees down. So get the
You earned
aggression,
it.
get the aggression back out that way. But yeah, I mean, like one of the most successful things I feel like I've done was cast that rock, and it was just a rock. Like it wasn't anything super crazy. I mean, she had a concept behind it and a reason
Yeah.
for it and everything.
Yeah.
She wanted to like show the original with the casted piece, as
Mhm.
far as I know, and I know she picked it up from trails. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. And took it to a show. I don't know what's happened to it since then. I'd like
Yeah.
to see it again someday. But yeah, so like stuff like that, like I just genuinely enjoy, like even though it was a critique in school, I like helping other people make art. It's a really neat thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to teach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I relate a lot to what you're talking about because
Yeah.
I like helping. I mean, that's like I can't remember now. I haven't even done all that many of these interviews, but I was talking to somebody and it was like I think it was maybe Kristen Tordella Williams, but maybe not. It doesn't even really matter. I don't like have a lot of iron portfolio work because like I took one foundry class in grad school and so I produced 3 pieces which the majority of them were stolen. So like I don't have them. But then the rest of the time I was in grad school I was just like the studio tech or just kind of like auditing the class to learn more about mold making and iron casting, but like I didn't produce a lot of castings at UGA. And then even to this day, like, I maybe cast, I don't know how many iron pours I go to a year. I mean, the pandemic was different,
I've been to a lot, but yeah.
But like what I have to show for it, if it was going to be like on a website or like to show
I have very little.
a portfolio, I have very little, but I don't think that that's really
I don't consider it
what
a bad
it's
thing.
about. Like,
but also, I'm not a practicing artist. Like, that's not how I'm having to make my livelihood. I'm not a teacher somewhere that has to show that they're producing and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of have the freedom to go do these things, take the time off to go do them, and just enjoy the experience for what it is.
Yeah.
Without having to be stressed about producing something. That doesn't mean I can't go do that. I have done that plenty of times. But yeah, I just, like I said, I like to nerd out. I'm a giant nerd. But I like to nerd out about how things were made and stuff. So I love finding out. I sometimes ask people about their concept and stuff because it helps you kind of understand what goal they're going for.
Yeah.
But like, I just love asking people, what are you making? How are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to finish this? Like, everyone I talked to trails that had their pieces cast, I was like, oh, what are you going to do with it now? Like,
yeah.
Not like, where's it going to be shown, but like, how's it going together? Are you adding anything else to it? Stuff like that. I was really excited to see Kristen's pieces because I had to leave. I had to leave before she broke them out.
Me too.
Luckily, Instagram helps with that. So super excited. I hadn't seen her since 2018.
Yeah.
So it was super. 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Last time she was at trails, it had been 3 years. I think is what we figured out. But it was like no. That's another thing I like about the iron community. Like, she's a good example because it's a recent one, or even you as well. Like, it's been 3 years since I've seen some of these people, and it's like not a day has passed.
Yeah, you pick up right where you left off, for sure.
And in social media and people sharing their stuff really helps with that because I was able to talk to her. I was able to talk to you and other people about stuff they've been doing because I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of suck because I don't ever post anything.
No, I don't think you can say that because I also like if you look at my Instagram now, the only thing that I'm posting is like pictures about the podcast.
Yeah.
And before that, it was very few and far between.
Yeah.
But I look out like at I watch what it goes by. And I think that there's room for us too, Yeah.
I creep on if you are someone I know in the iron community and you have an Instagram, or if it's Facebook where you show your stuff, I guarantee you I follow you and I will probably like every picture you post.
Yeah.
So even if I don't like what the piece is, I think it's cool that you're doing it and the process you're doing. So some people I follow periods for their processes that I've never even met in person, that I've learned through either your podcast recently or through other people. Like, I don't believe I've ever actually met, he's in Germany right now. Kurt, I always say his last name wrong.
Kurt Deerhawk?
Deerhawk, yes.
Yeah.
I always either forget or say his last name wrong, and I always feel bad. But like, I love the stuff he's doing with 3D printing and iron.
Yeah.
Like how he's doing that, or some of his pieces, like he's finishing them to look like iron. Like they look like they should be heavy. And you pick them up and it's just a print. So it's not even a pound. Like I love that type of stuff. David Marquez, I've learned a ton from him. He's the professor down at Western Kentucky. Love Dave to death, but he's done some stuff like that with using 3D prints and casting, but not actually casting them in metal, just using the print as the base and using it as a finish. So like just the new technology and stuff, I think it opens up the doors for people to still stay involved in iron. Like, cause I have a piece that I'm thinking about finishing to look like it's in iron. Cause I did it on a smaller scale that way, but it's just a giant piece of plastic sitting beside me. So I was like, it would be a really complicated mold in sand. Honestly, I would probably be better off ceramic shaling it because it's actually printed in wax. Okay. So all I'd have to do is sprue it and I could go straight into dipping. But it's fairly large and I don't have anywhere to dip something that big. I'd probably have to go to Memphis. Yeah, Memphis would probably be the only place I know that I could have access to that has something going on. That or Sloss. I remember they had a pretty big shell tank.
They do.
I mean, this thing's like probably 2 foot wingspan on it almost.
Yeah.
And it's a really thin piece. So I always was like in my head, I'm like, some of the pieces I'm revisiting are really thin, and I'm like, maybe you need an iron. And I think the finishes I could do in iron and then would be appropriate, but they're really thin. And as we talked about, iron doesn't like being thin.
Yeah.
So then a workaround that would be, well, don't cast it in iron, but you can still make it look like it's in iron.
Yeah.
And get the same effect that you're wanting to go for.
Yeah. And I think that there's something really interesting about that. And also it's like cost too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I also, like, I have an art related job, but I'm not, making my living by making cast iron art. And so like I have to pay bills. So sometimes, iron is relatively less expensive than say bronze, but it's still like the cost of to make some of the things that I want to make. It's like that's still going to be like, I don't know, like $300
Like
in
with
sand
iron,
and yeah.
with iron casting, like was it a year or two ago when I just made it. It's basically a chunk of iron. I actually meant to take it back up the trails for them to bust up this summer because it was just a test piece.
Yeah.
Last year I casted like three hats, like three different hats. Like one was a Sloss hat, one was a Country Boy hat, and the other was like a UK hat. They all had different textures and the materials were different. So I just wanted to see like what would come through and what wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then molding ended up getting kind of dribbled into. So there's like some chill lines, but it was all mainly a whole. I wasn't too stressed because, like I said, a test piece.
Yeah.
Nice thing about those is I don't have to stress about them. It's just to see what would happen. And to figure out gating and stuff. Like Jerry Massey gave me advice on how I might be able to gate that to, even if that did happen, it could helpfully still fuse and finish out like the brims of the hat specifically.
Yeah.
It would just be, I'm trying to think how to say this. It'd be really nice to like learn how to do that stuff in the iron, but then also like I could do it not in iron and get it, because like that test piece was $100. I joked around. I was like, "Yeah, I made art for under $100."
Yeah.
But people don't think about it when we have to go cast stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you have your sand, your iron costs, but like a lot of us have to travel, so you then also have
Yes.
your travel expenses. Like, you have to take that into account when you're making a piece, especially if you're producing stuff for a show and you want to sell it and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's something I've learned a ton at my current job, because my bosses, they run Maynard Studios. They do really high end. They don't do any casting. They outsource the casting. Like, we have some bronze pieces and stuff, but they have done casting in shop before, like little bronze fours, but nothing iron related. But they make really high end rails, like handrails. They do a lot of other sculptural stuff too. They've done trees, like actual full size trees out of forged steel. It's really impressive. They do really sculptural hand railings. They like to blur the lines between functional and art. They've done, chandeliers, tables, all the stuff. It's really beautiful work, and it's not necessarily the fastest way to make some of these things because it's all hand forged and put together. But the end result's really worth it. But seeing them do that and like learning from them, what you have to charge into that stuff. I've kind of thought about that stuff, like going back into iron casting and stuff. I'm sure more experienced people in the field who do it for a living probably also have figured that out. But you have to account, like, we have to account in, like, when they're quoting stuff, like, how long did it take to load your truck? How much gas are you spending to get there? Like, how much time are you there? Like, that's one thing I never used to think about, was all the time I've spent loading my car down just to get somewhere. Like,
yeah.
like, time is money.
Yeah.
Like, your time is worth something, no matter who you are or what you're doing. Like, if you're producing something for someone, you're doing commission, every bit of time you use on that is worth it. It's not just when you're working solely on the piece. So that's been a really good lesson to learn from them, as far as like if I ever decide to produce and sell anything through iron or other means.
But it sounds like also, even not in producing, like, you just value your time more. And
we have a limited amount of time in a day. So
yeah. And I think that that's a really valuable lesson to acknowledge as well.
Yeah. So, but, iron casting, love it to death. And like I said at the beginning, I feel like I'm odd because, typical people have went through academia. They've had their undergrad, they have their master's, never really been interested in going to grad school. It hasn't really felt like something I've needed to do. I know some people are drawn to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want people to know that you can continue with this stuff without having to do the same path everybody else has. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You can just do it for fun. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. And I think that that's like one of the things that is really important for you to get across, because I do think that sometimes it can be like I get self-conscious that I'm not producing more cast iron pieces, or I'm not like, I have this cast iron gypsy Instagram, but I don't really show a lot of cast. Like, it was a name that I grabbed when I was casting more, and I feel a little bit like an imposter, but it's also
Yeah,
like,
it's imposter syndrome.
but it's also like everything that anybody does is valid and worthy. And like, you don't have to, I mean, have I interviewed anybody that hasn't gone to school? They just learned iron. Maybe that's that's a box I need to fill. Is
Maybe.
anybody?
I know you interviewed Remy, and he was mostly self-taught, he said.
Yeah.
But he did go to school, but I think he said
Yeah.
he was mostly self-taught when it
Yeah.
comes to iron.
Yeah. Like every single path is valid and interesting and different. It has a different, every story has a different lesson that can be learned if you listen the right way.
Yeah, even looping back to trails, which I will keep bringing up because as of
Yeah.
this year, I've been going up. I have not missed a fire at night in 10 years. This is my 10th one. Now,
Wow.
I know they didn't have a fire at night at COVID. I mean, talk about that later, but I still poured iron up there that summer.
Nice. Yeah.
So I technically haven't. I've been in there for every one they've had since I've known the places existed. And
Yeah.
I've been up there once, at least once every year. So, but like that place, I've met an engineer that has never casted iron. They were reproducing parts for a car they were rebuilding. Like
Mm-hmm.
he didn't learn that through that, and he's obsessed with iron casting. He comes every year now. Like he loves doing it and
I
stuff.
met him. He had the
Roan,
fancy hat on, the fancy shirt, right?
yeah.
The really nice shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him like come over to wherever we were all sitting, and I was like, man, he's got a really nice shirt. And I told him that, and he was like, everybody says that about this shirt.
Yeah,
But
no, he was
yeah,
up there
I
in
saw him
20.
right away.
I think it was 2014, my last year
Yeah.
interning. He was up there, and he literally went there on behalf of his work.
Yeah.
They were trying to reproduce this car as close to possible to the original parts.
Wow.
Because it was
Okay.
the first like motorized vehicle in Indiana. Like Bloomington has a museum, and I guess
Okay.
I don't know if it's the correct term is engineering firm, but his business, his
Mm-hmm.
boss and them were commissioned to like the museum wanted to run again. So they were worried
Oh.
about damaging it. So
Mm-hmm.
they took 3D scans of everything. Like they had Amish make the wheels and all the woodwork and stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the original cast iron parts, they 3D scanned
Mm-hmm.
and had like a CNC cut out the foam. And then they brought that to us and we recasted those in iron. So that's really cool.
That's super cool.
So yeah, I mean, I've met people that I haven't met because of academia.
Yeah.
And like through school and stuff. A lot of people are like that, but a lot of people are just people who like heard about it. That's not something like trails is they put the name. It's like really big for the community up there, and people hear about it and they just come out to try it. A lot of people it's just scratch blocks. They just come out there to do scratch blocks. I love teaching little kids about scratch blocks. They're my favorite people to show because they just go to town digging it. You just have to keep them from busting through.
That's what I was gonna say. As long as they don't go all the way through it. Well, so I kind of wanted to, because I'm starting to beef this section up in the podcast, and so I appreciate you being game for this. But what do you love most about iron casting?
Well, what I love second most is the community. We'll just get that out of the way. No, I do love all the people. They're great. I wouldn't trade them for the world. But like the number one thing I love about iron casting is, and like I've stated this multiple times at this point, is I'm a nerd for process. So like just being able to, it's not like one particular aspect, but it's the whole like adventure from start to finish of an iron pour. Like seeing the furnace run and how it works and stuff. Lady D at Trails, I love that furnace. She runs hot and fast and can be mean if you aren't nice to her. But ran her, Lady Roy, Jim's furnace, Fifi. I've gotten to help out with Jeremy Colbert's Colbert, and also he has the Florida State furnace now 2.4, their big 24-inch ID furnace. that furnace is a beast. And you want to talk about something that's pretty. The inside of that thing is the most beautiful liner I've ever seen because it's all black and slick. I think they've relined it at this point, but when we first got it at UK, when I was on my way out, it was just black and slick. And I don't like they had just ran that thing. It is kind of satisfying just to be able to throw a brake rotor into a furnace. Not at the end of a pour, just that was a charge. Like you just and it just ate it. It was really nice and made my back feel really nice because you have to break it. But yeah, seeing these furnaces because I know you've had a lot of people on the show that talk about building the furnaces and stuff and like tuning them in, making sure like figuring out how they need to run, all the kinks and stuff. But like seeing that furnace actually run and do its thing, how it performs, if a hot spot happens in the furnace, you can see that going and everything. But like just seeing the process of all that material you spent all this time breaking, going in there, coming through out into molten metal that you're carrying, and then into because yeah, we make the patterns for our molds and stuff, but like having that final iron object, like the whole process is my favorite thing. Like the people are great and you need them to do it. But the actual process itself, I could stand and even if I wasn't participating, I could literally stand and watch an iron pour every second of every day. And I would never get bored because there's always something to look at. There's always something to analyze. Like I said, back to being kind of a nerd, like there's always something to like critique and look at how it's working, what needs to be more efficient with it. Like how can you improve on it and stuff. And everybody does that. I mean, anyone who's built their furnace, like they're always trying to figure out how to make it work better. And even if you have a furnace that works perfect and you pour and have no problems with it 100 times, that 101st time, something new might happen because a charge was slightly different. Someone poked a tweer wrong or didn't poke a tweer, or the bed had a leak in it, like the gasket blew or something. I mean, there's all these little tiny things that can happen that can change something. No matter how well you do it and stuff, stuff just happens. It's not a perfect science. It's close, but it's not perfect every time. We do have the human error in it. Like
yeah, there's so many variables.
Yeah, so being able to watch that, and like I said, my favorite iron pours are the most boring ones because nothing happens, right? Because that's everything went smooth. Like it's nice to see, like I feel like people kind of get wrapped up sometimes, like that don't understand or they see the pictures, like when things go wrong, like iron's throwing everywhere, there's water on the pour floor, it's in the rain. Like, yeah, that looks cool for pictures and stuff. You have molten metal splashing around everywhere. But there is something extremely satisfying, at least to me, watching a pour go perfect. And I mean, like, no yelling, like a quiet iron pour that you never hear a single voice other than when they yell, like, slag up or crew up. And that's basically it. Other than like if you have a crane running and they're having to direct which way the crane goes, like a completely silent pour for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and everything just gets done. It's like a machine working. We dance on the pour floor. Like you don't have to communicate. I mean, obviously there's like the 1, 2, 3 up stuff like that, but a very calm, quiet pour. I love them. They're my favorite thing on the earth. They're kind of like almost like I said with mold making. Like it's very zen and like relaxing. Like it's really satisfying to watch. I could sit on the hillside trails or anywhere by the river at Memphis, the shed at Sauce. I could sit there and just watch people pour iron over and over and over and see how they're doing it. So that's probably my most favorite thing. It's just the actual act of the furnace running and everything. So, and then obviously you got to love the people because you can't do any of that without them. So,
yeah. Well, do you have anything that you want to talk about to us that's hot on the horizon? And it doesn't have to be iron related, and it could be, but
so right now, me and my girlfriend Rachel, she wasn't up that trails this summer. She always has the biggest FOMO when I go without her because ever since I took her the first time, she's like in love with it. And she's not an art person like at all. She's done craft stuff in her sorority when she was in school, but she does not consider herself very creative. But I tell her she can be. Everybody can be creative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People just have different levels of it. But we're looking to move soon to help her facilitate a better area with jobs for her because she wants to work with exotic animals. So we are currently looking at houses in the Fort Worth, Dallas area in Texas. So I'll be moving down there at some point within the next few months. So that's going to be happening
Nice.
fairly soon. Hopefully won't have a girlfriend very much longer,
Oh.
because
Mm-hmm.
that is getting more serious and stuff. Had a
Yeah.
custom ring designed. I can say that publicly because she knows about all of that.
Okay. Okay.
She was included in the design process on that
Okay.
because I wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up. She just
Smart,
doesn't know
smart
when.
man.
She just doesn't know when or where it's happening.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. And that's honestly
but
like enough of a surprise.
so yeah, we're looking to do that. That's coming up within the next few months for both those things, moving and that. And then obviously with moving, I have to find a new job. Unfortunately, I do love my bosses and who I work for right now. They make beautiful work. I'm just gonna plug them. If you want to see their work, it's Maynard Studios. They're on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Crean makes little TikTok videos and stuff. Some of the stuff they do really amazing work. And I'm very proud to work for them. We actually just got done with the install today. We've had 2 installs this week of big pieces we finished.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, so everything went good. But yeah, they're amazing people, super creative. Um, so if you have any interest in like just blacksmithing or every piece of metal that comes through our shop is hand forged in some way, fashion, or form. I would suggest looking at their work. They're very talented. They've been doing it for over 20 years and have work all over the U.S. and the world. So, very renowned people as far as that goes. But yeah, so I do welding now, which I can actually kind of thank iron casting and all my stuff in school for. Because when I worked my logistics job, I made good money. It allowed me to go to slots and stuff without ever having to stress, but I hated it because I was working 24/7. So then I just went back to my art brain and was like, what skill have I learned that I can go make money on, but allow me to do what I'm doing now, but not be in a job I hate? Right.
Yeah.
So in my brain, I was like, well, I know how to weld, but I don't know how to technically weld. And I've always been super curious about it. So I just went back to school and got certified in welding.
Nice.
And now I'm like the biggest welding nerd there is. Like it's process. I love the process with it. I love figuring out how to weld stuff. Cast iron's a particular beast when it comes to trying to weld it properly. There's oddly enough, a ton of different ways to do it. Some are successful depending on what you're trying to do with it and everything like that. But yeah, so I'm just looking for like a production style, like welding job somewhere. It might be somewhere artistic again. It might be a production facility or something. I just want to get better at that skill because I just like to, I don't know, I like to learn how things work, not master, but like learn that skill good enough to perform it efficiently myself and just keep going and stuff like that. So I do like welding a lot. If anyone has any interest in it, there's tons of places that would hire you that you can also still do art stuff. Like if I wanted to, I could try to find a foundry and work as like a person who puts the castings back together. I've done some of that now and stuff, but there's no shame in having a job where you work with your hands and doing like the trades type stuff. Because then that can help you facilitate your other stuff if you don't end up going with the line of like the academic route and stuff like that, or producing your own artwork. So that's just an important thing for people to remember.
So that's actually really good advice, even though we're on your hot on the horizon. But is there anything else hot on the horizon that you want to talk about, or do you want to go over to advice?
I guess the only other thing hot on the horizon, just
Uh-huh.
because it's another important thing I feel as far as all the people I've met,
Yeah.
sign up for sauce as soon as it's
I know.
available. Do it
Absolutely.
because
I know.
I don't even have a job. Like I don't even have a idea of where I'm going to be working and or the specific spot I'm going to be living. I'm
Yeah.
going to be further from Sloss than I am now because I'm only about
Mm-hmm.
6 hours from Birmingham and Lexington. Versus
Mm-hmm.
there, I think I'm going to be like 8 or 9 or maybe even 10. I'm not sure
Yeah.
how far, depending on where we end up moving.
Yeah.
When I go to apply for jobs, I'm going to tell them I have this week blocked out. I cannot work
Nice.
that week. So that's
Nice.
going to be like a requirement because I want to go because I mean, it's kind of a big deal. I volunteered in 2019. It was super awesome. I considered the steering committee, but with just everything going on in life, I decided not to apply for it and stuff. It happens. It's not a big deal. But then the next Sloss experience was just online, which was amazing and awesome how they did it. I watched every panel. It was actually kind of nice because I could go to work and then that evening I could sit down and take in all the stuff people had produced. So I kind of hope they continue to at least archive the stuff so that people can't be there can still do it. It'd be kind of nice to keep the video aspect if it's possible. But yeah, I miss Sloss. I miss going down there. It's
Yeah,
always a
I
fun
can't
time.
wait. I mean,
So
it's funny because I am talking about it like a lot. I'm really pushing it, which I feel like is appropriate. But
they're a very big sponsor. So
I'm so grateful that they're excited about what I'm doing enough to support me, and so in turn I'm trying to support them. But also it's like I said in one of the episodes, there's not been a single episode that hasn't talked about sloss, or every single sloss has been important to every single guest so far. And I
yeah.
can't, yeah. So, I, though sometimes I'm like, am I pushing it too much? But
No,
no.
it seems very natural, I think, at least. I don't know.
Okay.
Listening to Ira's interview got me even more pumped about it
Oh,
because he's involved with it and stuff.
yeah.
Um, so I got more excited about it because I kind of had forgot. Because honestly, depending on the week and how much is going on at work and real life stuff, since we're looking at moving right now, I
Yeah.
forget not only what day it is. Like today, I thought was Monday, not Friday,
Oh,
because the
no.
way our work
Oh,
day was
no.
going.
Oh, dear. I'm glad it's not Monday. Let me tell
Yeah,
you.
but so I'll have those days. I'll have days where like in my brain, Rachel gives me crap. I'm like, yeah, like last year we did this, and she goes, "Babe, we did that in 2020." I was like, "Yeah, that's not last year.
Yeah.
That's 2 years ago. That's almost three
Yeah.
years ago at this point." Um, so yeah, it's just it feels like it's been, even though it's only been it'll be 2 years before we go back, or 3 year, yeah,
Yeah.
3 or 4
It's,
years,
uh,
19, 4 years. It'll be 4 years
since we were
by the time we
on the
on
ground
site.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, which in these days that feels like an eternity.
I know. Yeah. I
um,
can't
so
believe it.
I just want to go down there and walk from the campground all the way up to the like the casting shed number one. Just make the walk, even though
Yeah.
people always complain about having to walk sometimes. I just want to walk
Yeah.
up and down
Yeah.
just to see
Yeah.
what everybody's doing.
I'm so excited. I can't even tell you. Yeah, that's another one that's like a non-negotiable vacation, but it's definitely going to happen this year. Well, I mean, like I'm definitely going to go.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why I would miss it. So I'm like really excited about it.
you have to go down there and do a live podcast
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll have
if
to
you
see.
can
I
do
gotta
that. That'd be
give
neat.
this. I mean, I gotta give the steering committee time to, because they just announced
They just announced the dates, right?
the theme.
Oh yeah, the theme. I saw that.
I'm
I
gonna pull
saw
it
it
up.
today.
The 2023 NCCC IAP theme is shift change. Yeah. So I'm excited to
Yes.
see what it's about, and like also I think it's really appropriate
Yeah.
for like what we just all went through with COVID. But I'm excited. I'm so excited.
I think everybody
Just
is. I think it's
yeah,
like
I kind of hope that this is like the biggest one that's ever been.
it'd be nice. Yeah.
Like just because everybody's so starved for it. So like that's it, everybody. Let's make this the biggest national conference hosted by Sloss ever
That'd
so
be
far. I
nice.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is the biggest one. So do you have any advice?
Mm.
I mean, I feel like you've given a lot of advice this whole time. And that's not even me trying to like put you off the hook. But
No.
just
Um,
talking about like not having to feel like you have to be producing art to be a valid member of society, a valid member of society, I should say that. Like the way that you're talking about,
a part of the community. You don't have to be a producing artist to be a part of the community, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the biggest piece of advice, because it's how I've taken things, and I feel like it's worked out well, and I feel like it could work out well for anybody, no matter what your goal in life is with doing this stuff or being involved in it. Is just everything you go to, you need to like soak up as much of the knowledge as you can, like in every aspect, like how furnaces are working where you're at, who's making the molds. Because like one of the reasons I'm really glad you're doing this is because, and we kind of talked about at Trails, is it's giving an archive of people's origin stories and how they came to be and stuff like that. Because we lose if we lose people in the community, to age and time and sickness and stuff. It's really sad, but like when you lose them, part of their story goes with them, and it's hard to share that again with other people other than through like word of mouth and stories. which can happen, and stuff's always been passed down that way. But it's kind of nice to have like a physical thing to like remember them by, or something, like if someone's wrote a book on something, like I have a signed copy of the letters to a young uh caster. I love that. It's locked up. I have certain books that are just locked up. Like I don't want the dogs, cats, nobody touching. But like stuff like that is really important to have. So I like this because like I said earlier, I found out that Richard Rome had passed, and I really loved working with him and learned a ton. I mean, I'd only ever seen people make like 10, 15 part molds. And the first time I worked with that gentleman, we made a 60 part. And my mind was just like blown because he would do these like, I thought they were joking when they said he'd come over with a little tiny plastic cup and get sand to make a part. I thought they were like it was a joke. No, he came over there with a little plastic cup and would mold this little tiny section of sand. He lets it set till it got cheesy, and then he would shave it so it's perfectly drafted to fit in that one spot. And he would do this across his entire piece to get rid of all the undercuts, and then you mother mold that and flip and do the other side. And then he'd have this big piece that once you take the pattern out, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Like it was just, it made my brain hurt the first time I saw it. But then I saw it for 3 years straight interning up there. And now watching that, I mean, like reading about it and his process is one thing, but like physically being able to see him do that, and him explain it to me. So like if we had like an audio recording of him talking about it to someone, I think would be like beneficial, but we don't, or at least not that I know of. Like him explain it to me. Ever since that, I will look at anything and be like, oh yeah, I can make a mold of that. Just how much time do we have? Like is the question. Like we have a day. Yeah, I probably can't cast it, at least not appropriately, right? Or there might be another method we need to go with. But like learning about stuff like that, or like I learned a ton from because at UK when we had our iron pours every year, we had a visiting artist. So like Allison and Noah were one year because I also went to 6 Mile one time. That was in 2012, I think. That's when I went. The only time I went.
I think
so
that's when I met you initially.
I think
actually.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a pink helmet.
Yeah.
But like we had them come in, but like more recently, I know a lot of people have seen it, is Dan Hunt. He brought some of his students to UK. And it was really cool to learn from him and stuff. I loved his mustache. It was awesome. But learned a lot from him. And
he
like
also had a pink
worked.
helmet.
Yes, he did. Yeah. His whole like, he was one of those people that
his
like
regalia.
his leather gear was very iconic. Yeah. Like, yeah, I can picture it in my head and stuff. Like, he's one of those people you see on the, because we all look, everyone always jokes we all look kind of the same in our suits and stuff. And then some people you can tell by what patches or how their names on their back. But everybody has like little iconic things like that. I think people can kind of pick them out for. But Dan was one of those people that had like his whole outfit. It wasn't just the helmet matched him. I think the mustache may help a little bit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like learning from people like that, you never know, as sad as it is to think about, like you never know what's going to happen in life, or like when those people are going to be taken from you or potentially not involved in the community anymore. So like anytime you go to Sauce, Trails, Memphis, the Western, which is coming up, I know I can't go to that because moving, but like anytime you can go to any of that stuff, like just try to soak up the stuff. And then if like, don't be afraid to ask the people if they have any literature on what they do, or anything like that. Like if there's any physical copies, or hey, have you been interviewed by Laura yet? Like, is there an interview I can watch to like learn about you? Like anything like that is important because, like I said, that knowledge isn't always going to be there. So like trying to absorb it so you can either pass it on or have it yourself is a really important thing. Yeah. So I think that's something that sometimes it gets overlooked. I'm one of those people that will ask. I'll probably annoy people because I ask them questions and they probably like just leave me alone.
No.
Because I want to know what they're doing, how they're doing it. Not necessarily like copy and just do what they do, but like Kurt's stuff with the 3D prints and stuff. I don't necessarily want to copy and do exactly what he's doing, but that process is really neat, and you could apply that to other types of stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you never know where some knowledge that you learn from somebody or something, where it might get mixed up, turned around, and then actually you can apply it in a completely different circumstance, but it'll work.
Exactly. So I think that's really important. So I say my number one advice would be to wherever you go, whether it's in school, another school, conferences, internships, and like they soak up as much knowledge as you can because you never know. Like it might be 20 years down the road before you use that piece of knowledge, but you have it. So, and if you have a physical copy or something to refer to it back, that helps a ton. Like I kept those iron casting ones, like what I'm really big into welding right now. I have my textbook from school and stuff that I can constantly reference when I'm trying to figure out how to weld something new at work that we don't typically do. Like we're doing bronze stuff, or like I had to make a fire screen out of stainless steel. I had zero experience with stainless steel. I figured it out and welded it. I took one piece to test stuff on, got the settings right, and then came out perfect, no problems. So it's just, but I saved a ton of time by being able to have stuff to reference and doing that. So there's very practical application for keeping that knowledge around. So,
well, with that, I think it's time for us to go on over to the after show. Do you have any after show questions picked out that we can kind of tease a little bit for the public listeners?
I think we kind of like, I didn't go into them, but we kind of like touched on them a teeny bit. Like it would kind of cover a few of them, but I would have to say probably, it's not like one specific event, but I just kind of want to talk about some different iron pours and things I've experienced that I feel like other people should know about so that they can keep an eye out in the future.
Yeah.
So scary things, but educational things.
I'm intrigued. I think the after show when I feel comfortable enough with the, like how much has been covered and the origin story has been covered and everything is kind of like been taken care of it and wrapped up. And then we go over onto the after show and then we can just like I can hear more of like the nitty gritty and like we can talk. I think that there's been probably a couple of after shows where it's like just we talk about like one iron pour and like all the little details and stuff that happen. So like that sounds like a great little thing to go on over to. So let's just say good night to the public viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Rob, thanks for being on the show today. I've had a great time chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. And if you want to listen to the after show, you can do what I do since I'm not rich right now with the dollar. You can listen to all of them. So
yeah. If you just $1 a month, you can get all of the after shows from all of the episodes that have been recorded so far, but then all of the ones coming up. I'll see you in the after show, but everybody else, if we don't see you in the after show, which we wish we would, but if not, thank you so much for tuning in and have a great rest of your day. Okay. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in today. While listening to Rob recount how he learned to cast iron, I gained a new perspective on how this process and material can give drive to our lives and our actions can result in many forms of accomplishment. The way Rob and others like him work tirelessly to help others achieve their goals, and the way that he takes great pride and satisfaction from being a single part of the bigger collective, that attitude really is what sustains this form of art making and why we all love it so much. Rob, thanks for taking a chance and stepping into the spotlight for this episode. Your humble and giving approach to iron and life has helped me reframe my perspective of the role I'm playing in the community, and because of that, I'm much better off. Thank you for being an outstanding example of how helping others can be just as rewarding as achieving a personal goal, maybe even more so. You demonstrate that there really is no one-size-fits-all metric of success in the world. We each have the power to define success for ourselves. And if we do it because we love the process and the people and how it makes us feel, then that's an accomplishment to be proud of. If you're interested in catching up with Rob on social media, his Instagram handle is DALEIII. So now I want to explain the recent changes to the podcast Iron release schedule. While the weekly releases have been very exciting, I am struggling to keep up with the tide, and over the past 16 weeks, I've discovered that it's really not sustainable when paired with my day job and other life responsibilities. This has been a difficult decision to make because I really want to release a new episode each week, but I also want to maintain this project in a consistent manner for the foreseeable future. And this is just the best option for me to prevent burnout and regain some balance in my life. So thank you for all of your support and encouragement as I navigate this new endeavor, and thank you for understanding as I reshuffle my priorities to keep in mind the long game for the podcast Iron. And one last word of thanks to our top supporter, Sloss Metal Arts, as well as our other supporters on Patreon. The funds that they support me with are invaluable and help me to continue to produce these episodes. If you also want to support the show and get access to all the after shows from each episode, for as little as $1 a month, go to our Patreon page. There you can choose a contribution level that fits within your budget. But supporters at any level get access to the after show from each episode. And probably now you know that it's just an extra 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes more, with each show's guest where we talk a little more candidly and share at least one more story. If you don't have it in your budget to support the podcast Iron on Patreon, that's okay. If instead you could just share this podcast with someone you think would be interested in or listening or watching, and I'll appreciate that just as much. Anything and everything helps, and for that I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you happen to be watching this show on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the podcast Iron channel. This way you can set up notifications for when each episode goes live, but I'm working towards 100 subscribers because reaching that milestone will allow me to change the URL from a random arrangement of numbers and letters that I've been assigned to by YouTube to a more personal URL. And I would love to have the Podcast Iron YouTube channel address be youtube.com/podcastiron. So for those of you who have subscribed, thank you for helping me make this dream a reality. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com. Thanks again, as always, for listening and watching. I'm sending you all of my love, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day.